I just want to extend a warm welcome to everyone listening to this presentation. Just before we get moving, please allow me just a few seconds to introduce myself. My name is Jacques Boshoff. I'm currently based in Thailand and have been living and working here for the last 16 years, currently working for Thai Union. I started my journey in the pet industry about 25 years ago, and it's the only industry I've been working in since. And as per today's topic, I really want to focus on how the trends are influencing the future of pet nutrition. And I want to disclaim that I'm by no means a nutritionist, and that most of the data and information that I will be sharing today would be based on research that we've done, as well as some statistical analysis. So just looking at the trends in the pet food industry is currently a very favorable topic for discussion, and they are discussed in almost every webinar, seminar, pet expo by suppliers and manufacturers alike. I don't want this to be just another discussion on trends, because I think anyone that has been in the industry for any amount of time would be familiar with these trends already, as they've been around for a while. But I really think in the last 18 to maybe 24 months, they seem to have intensified. And I think much of that has to do with some of the lifestyle changes that we've seen globally, especially post-COVID. So we all already know that humanization and premiumization, ethical labels and sustainability, E and M commerce are sort of the top trends at the moment. And I really want to focus on humanization as the discussion point for today. And I think when you talk about humanization, you cannot talk about it as a standalone topic or trend without also not discussing and mentioning the humans or the people that drive this trend of humanization. And in our research, we have sort of identified three distinct demographics that make up the pet industry and the current growth and possibly future growth that we expect to see in the industry. And the first group that we've identified are the millennials. Now, the millennials is a group that want everything, and they want it now. For them, everything is on the go. Even fast food drive-thrus are too slow for them. They want to order their food online and track it all the way to their doorstep. The millennials currently make up about 25% of the global population, an exclusive club of about 1.8 billion people. However, when you look at this millennial moment, as it is effectively being called, a little bit deeper, then you realize it's more a story of emerging markets and global progress. 9 out of every 10 millennials come from emerging markets. They are currently the largest group of pet owners in the USA and the #1 source of buying power in the USA as well. 75% of the single millennials in the USA own a pet, with 44% of those millennials seeing their pet as their first child. Now, unfortunately, I only have data available for the US, but I think if you are able to get this data from currently emerging and developing markets, you would probably see pretty much the same trend. And I think that is why a lot of people that do market analysis and research estimate that most of the future growth will come from emerging markets. The second group that we've identified are the elderly. Now, they might not want everything, but they definitely have the finances to pay for everything. Currently, there are about 2.5 million 90-year-olds and older. In 1980, that number stood at 720,000. Now, a lot of this has to do with advances in medical care, but a huge driver of this longevity that we're seeing has got to do with people changing their lifestyles and following a healthier lifestyle. On a global scale, 8% of the global population is 60 years and older. Estimates are that number will grow to 13%, or 1 billion people by 2030, and then double to 2 billion by the year 2050. And there also seem to be some real benefits in keeping a pet as you get into your golden years. As people are getting older and the house gets emptier when children leave the house, people tend to turn to pets for companionship. And it's all got to do with this human-animal bond. And this human-animal bond is so strong that the Human Animal Bond Research Institute just released $2 million to further study the effects of this human-animal bond on human health. In terms of the type of pets that the elderly keep, they also seem to keep pets that are a little bit older because they're easier to look after, they're calmer, and they're definitely a little bit quieter. Then underlying these two demographics is another giant demographic with some major potential, and that is the female purchaser. We believe that together with the elderly, the female purchaser are hugely underserved markets at the moment. Women are definitely playing a more dominant role in all areas of life. And this is very evident if you look at the number of households headed by females as the single breadwinner of the family. Now, in 2017, that number has increased to 23%, where women or mothers are the sole or majority breadwinner in the household. However, looking at the 41%, where it says co-breadwinners, that figure actually means that although they are co-breadwinners, the woman is the leading breadwinner in that household. And just looking at the stay-at-home dads, the number has increased from 1.1 million in 1989 to where it's now about 2.2 million stay-at-home dads. Women also tend to get married a little bit later in life than before. The average age where women now get married is around about 35. And women also are delaying having their first child. Right now, at the moment, it's around about 32 years of age, where in the past it used to be about 27. Now, when it comes to decision making, women tend to be the leading decision maker in almost all purchases. And of the list here, there are really two areas in particular that are of importance to us in the pet industry. And the first one is all consumer purchases. And you can see here that women make about 83% of all consumer purchases. Women now control about $20 trillion in consumer spending. And the estimates are that figure could rise or go as high as $28 trillion in the next 5 years. Women definitely drive the global economy at the moment. Their annual earnings are about $13 trillion in total and could reach $18 trillion in the same period. And obviously the other area is healthcare. If people see their pet to be a part of the family, it is only understandable that the pet's health would be a point of concern as well. And that ties in very well with decision making around healthcare. Now, as I mentioned, these trends are probably nothing new and have not changed much over the last decade or so. But what have changed are the lifestyles, especially in health and well-being of these groups. And we all know that the world post-COVID is going to be a very, very different place. And based on that, we foresee that there's 3 areas in particular that will experience some renewed focus in terms of new product development and innovation. And the first one of those areas is the microbiome. Now, I personally think gut health will become the largest area of research and product development when it comes to overall health. Our bodies and those of our pets are essentially a home for our microbiome. Our and our pet's relationship with our microbiome is reciprocal of nature, meaning that our health is dependent on the health of our microbiome and vice versa. And just to further drive this point home, we as humans are made up of about 30,000 genes. Our pets more or less the same, a little bit less, although our pets' genes are spread over 38 chromosomes. The human genome is spread over only 23 chromosomes. But if you look at the DNA or the genes of the tiny water flea, you will notice that this tiny creature has got 31,000 genes. So the question immediately arises then, how can we and our pets that have less genes than a tiny water flea be so complex? And the answer is in our bacteria. We are human or pet, not because of our genes, but because of our bacteria. And interesting also is that 99% of the genes that make the human body are bacterial, viral, and protozoal genes. Now, when people start to understand this, it is almost inevitable that the focus will shift to the 99% instead of the 1% where it's always been. And that is why we see in almost every food category new product development focusing on digestion and gut microbiome, from baby food to snacks to even ice cream. And we also see the same trend and product development and new launches in the pet industry with a lot of products addressing digestion through pre and probiotics. And it's not just food stuff and snacks that we see. There's also this new kit that was launched to test the microbiome of pets. And I also know there's already some companies working on postbiotics. Then the second area under the same umbrella as health and wellness, where we expect to see some further development, is that of cognitive health and performance, especially in a fast growing aging population with increased concern over mental health. AZ or the Alzheimer's Disease International predicts that Alzheimer's will almost triple between 2020 to 2050, from where it stood at just under 50 million to where it will end in 2050 at about 140 plus million people with Alzheimer's disease. And it's also widely known that pets, as they get older, suffer from cognitive dysfunction syndrome, which is very similar to dementia and Alzheimer's in humans. On the bright side, however, they are really doing some studies at the moment that seem to indicate that having a pet and looking after a pet could possibly treat some of the symptoms of Alzheimer's and possibly even cure it. Although these studies are pretty much in the infancy stages, but it does seem promising. So based on that, it's not surprising that we see a whole host of products aimed at supporting brain health and especially brain function. And this has led to the growth of a brand new category that is seeing exceptional growth, and that is nootropics. Now, nootropics has proven to increase learning and memory, protect the brain against physical and chemical injury, as well as improve brain performance under periods of stress. And the evidence of this is already in the market, especially if you look at the CBD market, which Nielsen's now estimate will become a $6,000 billion industry by 2005. And of course, as we know already, whatever happens on the human side of the market tends to happen on the pet food side. According to Brightfield Group, CBD in pet food would become a $1.2 billion industry by 2022. And we've also seen the rise of new startups in the field of pets, like this startup from Birdnip that just launched a nootropic supplement for dogs to improve the brain performance of our pets. The last area where I think we will see a lot of future development is in the field of longevity. I think there is enough evidence and data to support the fact that people are definitely living longer, and more studies are being done, not just to increase people's lifespan, but also their health span, meaning not just more years in life, but more active, happy and healthy years. And this whole field of longevity has led to the explosion of a new category, nutraceuticals, which is estimated to become a $205 billion industry in Asia alone. Now, over the last couple of years, we've seen the same trend in pet food with the inclusions of not just superfoods, but we're starting to see some other functional ingredients like botanical extracts in the form of triphala, turmeric, ashwagandha, and medicinal mushrooms. Now, further studies are also being done on diet, especially in the form of caloric restriction and dietary restriction, and the effects that they have on longevity. Dr. David Sinclair, a professor in the Department of Genetics at Harvard Business School, are doing some great work in this field. Most of us have grown up believing that aging is basically unpaired electrons floating around in our cells, damaging our DNA through a process of oxidation, and that's why it was also called the free radical theory of aging. Dr. Sinclair, though, has another theory which he calls the information theory of aging, and he believes, based on some of the studies and the research that him and his team have done and still continue to do, that there is one single cause for aging, and that is the loss of information, and more specific, epigenetic information. His research has been primarily focusing on sirtuins, which are known as the longevity genes. All mammals have 7 sirtuin genes made by almost every cell in the body. Now, sirtuins are a protein modifying enzyme that responds to changing levels of NAD as well as caloric restriction in diet. And closely following the work that Dr. Sinclair doing is a company called Lifespan.io. In fact, the founder of Lifespan.io was a member of Dr. Sinclair's team when they did some of the analysis and research on longevity. But Lifespan.io is busy conducting a longevity study on pets using 10,000 pets. And the results and learnings could possibly push pet nutrition down a whole new pathway. And questions would arise, I mean, asking, would we start seeing meal plans based on calorific restriction mimicking, where the amount of calories are not necessarily reduced, but the restriction of calories mimicking the same biological response that could possibly extend longevity in our pets. The other area where we might see some development is in dietary restriction, where a certain macronutrient is eliminated from the diet, almost like we see in some of the keto diets. And there's already an organization called Keto Pet that are doing some fantastic work based on ketogenic diets. Keto Pet is basically an animal sanctuary that take in all dogs with cancer, and they put these dogs on a ketogenic diet, and some of the results that they've seen are phenomenal. Now, it's not a cure for cancer, but it does improve some of the difficulties that animals have responding to some of the cancer treatments. So it's all very encouraging, especially for pets and their owners. And the future for pet nutrition could look very different and would make manufacturers rethink their innovation and their future development efforts. And I guess when our pets are loved and cared for as a member of the family, health and good nutrition are non-negotiables. Thank you very much.